Hey guys, Chris Peach here, and welcome to the Money Peach podcast. Hey, do you remember growing up learning how to handle money? Yeah, neither do I. So that's why we're here today, to make your money fun again. You know, we're going to talk about the principles in life that actually matter when it comes to managing your money in a way that works. So sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of the Money Peach podcast. Before we jump into another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast, I want to take a second to talk to you guys about my free budgeting form. You know, the first step to getting on any financial plan is to measure the money. And the only way to measure the money is if you are living on a monthly budget. So after this episode, head on over to moneypeach.com and please download my free budgeting form. There's thousands of people now all over the world who are taking back control of their money using this same form each and every month. The number one habit of highly successful people is they're proactive. So be proactive with your money and get yourself on a budget. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. I'm Chris Peach. This is episode 55. You ever have that feeling when you know something special is about to happen? That's what it was like sitting down and interviewing this week's guest. This week's guest is the CEO and co-founder of a new app, a new company called AirGarage. And what they do is they connect people out there looking for parking spots with people who have driveways or parking lots available, and they connect those people together through an app through their software called AirGarage. The coolest part about this is it literally launched just a few months ago in June, and the even better part is the CEO and co-founder, my guest here in a few seconds, Jonathan Barkin, the 20-year-old college student who came up with this idea. It's an amazing story. He talks about being an entrepreneur in high school, making close to $500 an hour. He's going to talk about that. Yes, $500 an hour. And then he talks about growing his business while going to school full-time and what that looks like. It's an amazing story. I want you guys to hear it first. And by the way, this is the first podcast he's ever done, so I have a huge feeling that this guy is going to be wildly successful. Super excited that we landed him on the Money Peach podcast. So without further ado, let me bring on Jonathan Barkin, CEO, co-founder of AirGarage. All right, Jonathan, thank you so much for coming on the show. Super excited to have you on. I remember seeing you on the news recently here in Phoenix, and I remember watching it going, okay, this is a guy I have to come on the podcast because he has a pretty cool story, pretty cool. Well, I don't want to spoil anything, so let's just jump right in. So tell me a little bit about who's Jonathan Barkin. Yeah,
definitely. It's great to be here. So I am currently going into my junior year at Arizona State University. I study physics and economics, and I'm just a pretty devoted student, but now kind of getting a little busier, focusing on other things such as AirGarage.
How old are you?
I'm 20.
Okay, you're 20 years old. So for those of you who don't know this, sometimes the guests get a little nervous about coming on the show, which they don't need to be. It's just a simple podcast. I always tell them. So I always say, well, why don't you just grab a beer, drink a beer and enjoy it, and don't worry, kind of calm down, ease the nerves. And, 9 times out of 10, people are like, oh yeah, that'd be great. So on the way here, I called you and I said, hey, Jonathan, what kind of beer do you like? Not thinking that you're only 20, and you had the right response. You said, well, I'm not old enough right now. And I'm like, okay, we'll move on. So I thought that was pretty smart because I wasn't even thinking that hard, because you're definitely the youngest person we've had on the podcast.
Yeah, that's definitely an honor. I mean, it's great to have been able to accomplish this at this point, but obviously, I've got a long road ahead of me, and so does everyone else. So, maybe I've got a head start, but it's going to be still a lot of work.
Okay, so you created an app called AirGarage, which we're definitely going to talk about. But before that, I think if I was listening, I'm driving in my car, I'm at the gym. Before I start listening to this guy, I want to know a little bit about you. So where did you grow up?
I grew up in North Phoenix, so I went to Sandra Day O'Connor High School. It's, just a typical public school in the northern area of Phoenix in a suburb, classic, very safe, relaxed suburb. I studied, hard there and was able to go far with it, I think.
Okay, so you say you studied hard. We talked about this before we jumped on here. How would you say you did as far as like top of your class, top 10%, 20%? Where were you at there?
I was tied with a few other people, but we were all ranked number one in the class at Sandra Day O'Connor.
Out of how many students?
I think there were 750 people in our class.
Okay, so the reason why I asked that is on episode 42, we brought on George Lawton. He's a very successful entrepreneur himself, and he was kind of, let me know that, hey, I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma, and I was the valedictorian. And I said, really? How big was your class? He goes, it was 12 people. So, George, if you're listening, I apologize for that one. But anyhow, so you had 750 people in your graduating class, and you were not the top 1%, but you were tied for number one.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so I don't know how this works in other states. I think it's the same, but if you are the top of your class, you get a scholarship. Is that correct?
It depends. I mean, you have to apply for the scholarship, but you definitely could earn the scholarship.
Okay. Very, very important. So if you're listening out there, you have to apply. The scholarships and the grants, they don't show up to your door saying, hey, would you like us to give you money for school? You have to go out there and get them. So even Jonathan, number one in his class, is still going out there and applying. So tell me how that works.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a stressful process for anyone, but, if you work hard during high school, it makes it a little bit easier. And unfortunately, like you said, they don't just come knocking on your door. But, if you go out there and you put yourself out there for, 100 scholarships, maybe 10 of them come back and you get some money, and then that can really support you for a long time through college.
So another thing that we had talked about that I thought was really interesting is during school, you had an opportunity to, go out and work at McDonald's, which is nothing wrong with that, right? It's a job. I think a job's important, but you knew you had a set of skills. So talk about the way you actually started generating income when you were in high school.
Yeah, so it actually was similar to what you mentioned beforehand, where you taught yourself how to, build your own blog. It was very similar to that. I was trying to start my own thing, and I decided to learn how to build WordPress websites. And so, I just sat through YouTube lessons and followed along and built websites and, built something for myself. But then that project didn't really go anywhere. So instead, I kind of just kept my radar open for small businesses or local businesses that were looking for websites themselves. And so they would put out an ad and say, oh, we want someone to come intern for us for $10 an hour, build us a website. And so I would email them and say, no, I don't want to be your intern, but yes, I'll build you a website for, $2,500 and do it that way. And, some would say, no, we want an intern. And some would say, yeah, okay, that works, because it was actually cheaper for them to do that than to, spend the time onboarding me and making me an official intern.
Okay. So you're in high school. How old were you when you started doing this?
18.
Okay. So you're 18 years old and you're learning how to build WordPress sites by literally sitting at home watching YouTube videos and just kind of teaching yourself. I mean, how many kids that you're friends with, your buddies, are generating, $2,500 getting hired to build this website? I mean, were your friends thinking that like you were doing something illegal? Like, this is crazy?
Definitely not. I mean, I wouldn't say anyone was aware. I didn't really, go around bragging that I had a ton of money. It was just kind of, I was just okay a little bit. Occasionally we would go out for a lunch or something and I wouldn't complain as much because, it doesn't matter when you're making $2,500 building a website.
And living at home, right?
Yeah. Exactly. No fees, no bills or anything to pay. You just have the luxury of having an income and nothing to put it towards. So you get to, save it or invest it as much as you want.
So did you start seeing kind of like the bigger picture here? Like, wait a second. Somebody's willing to pay me $2,500 to build them a website, and I didn't have to do a ton of, it wasn't like 8 years of training to get this gig. It was teaching myself and just asking, hey, would you like me to do this? Did the wheels start going in your head like, wow, this whole entrepreneur thing, starting my own thing and building my own business is kind of, contagious. Did you feel that way?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when I was doing this, I actually did have like a part-time job at a UPS store. And, the UPS store is kind of cool because it like allows small businesses to, come in and use their supplies. And it's kind of like a centralized facility for that. But, it started to occur to me like, oh, I can spend 5 hours sitting in this UPS store getting paid minimum wage, or I can spend 5 hours building a website and get paid $2,500 for it. Like, it struck me that you can create value much in excess beyond what the man would want you to think you can. Because if you really apply yourself or go for a niche that's not well served, there's a lot of opportunity to create value for those people, and they're willing to pay a lot of money for it.
So I love what you said there. So you can sit there in UPS store making minimum wage, or you can spend the same amount of time and like 100 times your income, right?
Right.
Just
definitely.
about. Yeah, it would be about 100 times your income. So you look at that going, it's a little bit more effort, but 100 times the result. And you start looking at that going, wow. So you're realizing this at 18 years old. So tell me about then, why did you choose to go to ASU, Arizona State? Because I think this is unique as well. Because when you're top one in your class, you have opportunity to go probably to a lot of different schools across the country, correct?
Yeah, definitely. So, the reason that I chose Arizona State was because as a high-ranking student, I applied for a scholarship called the Flynn Scholarship, which is a scholarship that pays, the top 20 Arizona students, according to their definition, to stay in the state of Arizona because they want to continue to improve the quality of life in Arizona. And they think that by keeping the brightest minds around in state, they can do that better. And so I think actually choosing to accept the Flynn Scholarship and go to Arizona State was one of the best decisions I've ever made, because every day I walk around campus and I'm looking at, all of the great construction or like the research that's going on. And it's amazing to me how much, Michael Crow and the entire team at Arizona State is doing to develop itself as really what they say is a new American university. And it's a new way to educate students. And I am lucky to be a part of that.
So I met Andrea, my wife, at Arizona State. And so this was 2001. So the school, I go there now, we go to football games, and it blows my mind how different it looks. It's completely different. It looks, I mean, I don't even I recognize maybe 10% of it. It's so unique. It's unbelievable college. So glad that you chose to go there, because you had some other choices here in Arizona, which are they're decent schools, but I mean, they're not ASU, right?
Right. Definitely not. Okay.
So if you're a U of A or NAU fan, I apologize. We're going to keep moving on here. All right. So you're at ASU. Now, what are you studying?
I'm studying physics and economics.
All right. So now let's start talking about the reason why I brought you here. Okay. So this is kind of the backstory. Jonathan, high school kid, kind of gets the entrepreneur bug by creating income at a pretty high level when you're 18 years old, right? And so tell me about, how did you get the idea? Well, let's first of all, we haven't even mentioned it. What is AirGarage? Tell me how that works.
Yeah, so AirGarage is basically the connection between homeowners and businesses that have maybe extra parking spaces or a driveway that they don't use 24/7, and drivers that are looking for affordable and convenient parking.
Just out of curiosity, because I remember it was expensive in 2001, but what is like an average parking spot at Arizona State University for the year?
Yeah, we actually talked to 250 students, and their average price that they were paying was $700 for a school year.
When you're in college, $700 it's a lot of money.
Right. And it's on top of $10,000 a year for tuition.
In-state tuition.
$10,000. Yeah, exactly. And $10,000 a year for if you're living on campus. And then, $3,000 a year for books and all the fees that are associated with it. So it adds up very quickly.
All right. So you see this, and then this is a pain point, right? Many students, I remember in 2001, I think it was $350 for the year. And we had to pay it one time. And I remember just that pain of like, oh my gosh, my life's going to be over for the next month because I just blew it on parking. So you saw this pain point. So how did you figure out to solve this pain point?
Yeah, so it really started like spring of 2016. We were talking to a lot of students and, not even thinking about that we were going to solve this, but just hearing people saying, this is a huge pain point for me. And, all of our friends, myself, Scott, we don't park our cars on campus because it's so expensive, and a lot of people are in the same situation. And so, of course, my first thought was, well, why don't I just buy some land near ASU and build a parking garage and then sell parking spots? But of course, that's a ridiculous idea, because if that was an easy solution, then ASU or Tempe would do that. But the problem with parking garages is they cost like $30,000 per parking space to build. And it can take like 30 years to pay that off, which is just not a solid business model at all. Nobody wants to build a parking garage unless you're like very in a downtown core. It's just a waste of money. And so we actually kept continuing these conversations with students, and like 4 or 5 students mentioned to us that, hey, the solution I found is I went off campus and I talked to a homeowner, and the city of Tempe actually issues licenses to park on the streets near ASU because there was a huge problem with students just parking for free before. So each homeowner gets 2 passes to park on the street. And some of these students had gone and bought passes from the homeowner. So they had to go through, add them to their listing in the city of Tempe's registry, and then those students got to park on the street. We said, well, that's cool, but how can we make that easier for everyone involved? And so that was kind of where the beginning of the idea that is AirGarage became, what it is today. Is it's a place to connect homeowners that have those extra parking spaces with the students that are looking for them in a much easier way, in a very facilitated kind of fashion, so that nobody has to go through the effort of knocking door to door on homeowners' doors in order to find parking. It's already been done for them, basically.
So this sounds like a win-win-win to me. Win meaning if you're a student and you're broke, because pretty much every student's broke, right?
Yeah.
We don't have any money. We don't have any money. Tuition's too expensive, right? So you're a student that's broke and you're looking for an alternative to parking. Now you can go find affordable parking.
Exactly.
If you're a homeowner living near campus, you already have students that are already trying to park in your driveway anyway, right? Because when I was in college, that happened. I'm not going to say I did it, but it did happen. Maybe I did do it once or twice. But anyhow, instead of having to worry about traffic enforcement, you're actually generating income while your driveway is generating income, right?
Yeah.
And then it frees up, the issues of the school not having enough parking for their students.
Exactly.
So this is a win-win-win. I think it's a great idea, right? I think the biggest thing I see is with all of us is, we have great ideas, right? It's not hard for us to create some amazing ideas, but generating action, taking action on that idea is tough. So what did that look like for you when you said, okay, we have this solution to this pain point, this problem that people are experiencing? How did you go and take action? What was that? What did that look like?
Yeah, so the first step that we took really was making sure that students were interested, right? So we did that survey. We talked to like 250 students.
How did you do that?
So basically we just posted on Facebook or like sent it out to random students that we knew and made like a basic Google form that was, what are you paying to park on campus? Like, where are you parking? Like, are you satisfied? Like, do you think it's safe? Do you think the price is reasonable? All these like opinion questions that we got responses for, and didn't even mention the concept of AirGarage. We just wanted to see what the sentiment was of students, what they were dealing with, and what kind of, pain points they were experiencing. And we actually found that 33% or so of students just weren't parking on campus. And the majority of those students said it was just too expensive for them. So there's an entire underserved, like underrepresented group there that doesn't park on campus. And that becomes a huge barrier for them to get to their class. So, a lot of students are already contemplating dropping out. And then if you just keep adding barriers like parking or like not being able to get to campus because they can't bring their car, that just makes it that more likely that someone will drop out of college, which is obviously not the goal of any university, right? It's not the goal of our education system. So we realized, parking shouldn't be this big problem. And so after we talked to the students, figured out that it was a problem for them and we wanted to fix it, we said, okay, well, the other side is we need to talk to homeowners. So basically what we did for them is we set up a Google form as well, but it was pitched as this is an opportunity to lease your driveway to a student. If you have an extra parking space, we put out 200 flyers and we got 10 homeowners to sign up, list their parking space with a Google form. And like no website, no business, no corporation, just a Google form and some flyers. We got 10 people to list spaces. And we were like, if 10 people out of these 200 were willing to do this when we have no credibility, we have nothing protecting them, there's nothing here at all, really. It's just an idea, then there's something there.
In episode 52, we brought on the CEO of Trim, which is like an automation for, it works through Facebook Messenger, through text messages. And it's always looking at, your bank account for you, telling you, giving you alerts. He calls it his AI, artificial intelligent personal assistant for his money, not for the investment, for his everyday money. And so he had this idea, and it reminded me of what you just said. So he goes, I go, how did you do your research and development, your R&D on this? What was the research you did? And he says he went on Twilio, got a fake phone number. Well, he bought a number, right? And so he got a phone number, got a link, and then he sent messages to all of his friends saying, hey, this guy's trying to start this business. What do you guys think of it? And he sent out from that random phone number this information, and they didn't know it was him at first, right? Because he wanted an unbiased opinion. He did the same thing. I think it took to a Google form, but he didn't want to have that barrier of somebody being like, oh, it's great. He wanted it to be like, you don't know this guy. So when you were going after that survey, when you were surveying people, did you survey just friends and family, or was it complete strangers as well?
At first, it was definitely friends and family because it was like we were sending out this Google form on our Facebooks. But then, what we did is we incentivized people to kind of share it. So if you filled out the form, you were entered to win like just a Starbucks gift card or something like that. People see that, and students, being broke students and being in love with coffee, of course, are just like, oh, hey, friends, like you can win a Starbucks gift card. Just fill out this survey really quickly, enter your email, and then you could win a gift card. And so that meant that it spread beyond I think maybe 25 out of the 250 responses that we got were from our friends. And then the remainder of those were people that I have never met in my entire life.
I'm really impressed by this. So you're 20 years old. I just wish that I had your brain when I was 20 years old, because I was doing stupid things in college when I was 20. So how are you coming up with all of these ideas? I mean, where did you get this entrepreneurial spirit to, go out and do research? I mean, interview people, send out Google forms. Where did you come up with these ideas?
I mean, I think it's just the drive comes from the opportunity to create value for someone that you don't even know. It amazes me and it shocks me. Maybe it shouldn't at this point, but every time someone signs up on our site or rents a parking space or goes through and lists a parking space, it's just this feeling of, accomplishment every single time, because that's one more person that I have somehow created value for. And being able to see that and feel that reward, I think links back to what I was doing for those small businesses. Is I was doing websites for them. And then in college, I started doing nonprofit consulting with a group on campus, and we were doing consulting for businesses across the Phoenix area. And in that, it's just so rewarding to go out there and do something for someone and see the smile on their face or see what you've helped them achieve, and taking that, kind of and bundling it up and thinking about it and mulling over it. It just makes me want to continue to do it and be able to continue to provide value for those people. And now all of the people using AirGarage are kind of even if there's only 300 of them right now, and even if that were the end of it, maybe if it never expanded beyond that, I'd be happy, because those 300 people have seen some sort of value created for them by our company.
I mean, I love that you said that. So It's about chasing the value that you're going to provide. I think that's the thing you have to focus on is the money will come if you focus on value. If you focus on money, the value will lack. You'll lose customers and people, they'll see right through you and say, oh, it's a snake oil salesman type thing, right? Sense that from a mile away. But when you're providing value, I mean, thinking of all the guests we've had on the show over the last, year. Last week we had somebody on, or a couple weeks ago we had somebody on who does macros coaching. Her thing is, providing value. She changes the way people feel about themselves. I had somebody on the show, with the artificial intelligence. He's like, some people feel stupid about not knowing how to manage their money. And now we have a little app on your phone that is sending you daily reminders about making good habits, and he goes, every time somebody signs up for that, I feel value. Amanda from the macros coaching episode, she said, anytime I get an email from somebody saying like, oh my gosh, I've never looked like this or felt like this in my life. She's like, I'm not thinking about the money. I'm thinking of, wow, I've just completely changed that girl's life. And so you're looking at, anytime somebody comes in, it's like, wow, you just solved a pain point for somebody and you're providing value, right? They're either going to save money or make money. And money is a huge pain point for all of us, right? I mean, did you realize that the number one stress we have in our life is money related? The number one cause of divorce in North America is financial problems. So if money touches every aspect of our lives, now you just found a way for people to either generate income, save money. That's cool.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I had never even thought about the fact that that is such a big pain point for so many people, but it definitely helps us out. I mean, as we begin to create value for people, it is an opportunity for them to like earn enough money to offset their phone bill every month. And maybe that's something small, but then that phone bill income or expense can go towards maybe saving for their dream trip or something like that. And that can start small, but become very large at some point in those lives of those people.
I wish this was around when I was in college. I was going to Arizona State, and you were saying a story a minute ago about how, some people, it end up affects their grades, right? Like the parking situation could affect their grades. And I know somebody might be listening and be like, that's crazy, but I can completely relate. So the parking situation was getting so bad at ASU that I lived about 4 miles south of campus, 4 or 5 miles. So I was like, you know what? I can't afford this parking right now. So I'm going to take the city bus. It was bus 72, right up and down the main road right there. So I took bus 72. I remember I had a final. Well, it was my fault. It was definitely my fault, but I took the later bus. I missed that bus. I had to wait like an extra 20 minutes, thinking I'll be fine. Well, then that extra 20 minutes, there was so much traffic that I'm looking at my watch and I'm going to miss the start of the final. It was a math final. I'll never forget. It was my freshman or sophomore year. I think it was my sophomore year. Long story short, it would have cost me the whole class, right? Just from missing that. So what I did, and I don't even know if I should be sharing this. I remember thinking, what am I going to do? So it was funny where the bus dropped me off, you had to run through the parking lot. So I'm running through the parking lot going, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I remember I saw this huge lifted truck with these shiny black tires. So I ran up and I started hugging the tire, trying to get black all over my arms, my face, my shirt, just trying to get as dirty as I can. And I ran into class. I ran as fast as I possibly could to class. So I came in just sweating like crazy and dirty. The teacher looks at me and I was like, I had a blowout on the freeway. I had to change my tire. And he believed me because, look at me. I was a mess. And if it wasn't for that quick thinking on my feet, I probably would have failed that class. But what it goes back to is the parking situation. If the parking wasn't so expensive, I wouldn't have had that problem. And so I think it's so unique that you have this service because I would have taken advantage of it in a heartbeat. So what's it cost for a student? Like I know you're growing it, but here in Tempe, Arizona, what would be a cost?
Yeah, so most of our spots go from somewhere between like $30 a month and $60 a month. So to give you an idea, ASU's parking is usually between $30 and $90 a month. Okay. Depending on which garage you're in and depending on how long you book for. Mm-hmm. But so our goal was to create that more convenient and affordable and a secondary option. And what we've done is created basically, you can, based on your budget, choose a parking spot that's either really close to campus and like really close to where your classes are, or you can choose one that's a little farther away for a cheaper price. So rather than ASU's parking system, which is all kind of like at least $500 to $700, it gives you more options and more variability to choose what you want to pay. Okay. So I remember when I was going there, when I did start parking on campus, I had a pickup truck. The lot I could afford was literally about a mile away. Like, it was ridiculous. It was called Lot 59. Is it still there? It's still, well, half of it is. They tore out half of it and put in some buildings there. Okay, so I had to put a bike in the bed of my truck. Yeah. And I remember thinking, this is so ridiculous that I'm parking here and I have to still take a bike to school. And looking at it, there was houses around campus that were way closer than Lot 59. I used to call it Lot East Jesus because I thought it was so far away. Yeah, it was pretty far. Yeah. Anyhow,
How are you generating income? How are you, and I want to talk about your partner here in a minute, but how are you guys generating income from this?
Yeah, so the way AirGarage works is if you're a homeowner, you go on and you list for whatever price you decide. So if you decide you want to list your spot for $50 a month, you would get $50 a month minus credit card payment processing. So it's like, a small minimal fee that goes to processing the entire payment. And then AirGarage, whatever you charge, we charge 12% on top of that to the student that is trying to book parking. So that's just a fee for, we've gone through, found the homeowners, it's helping them connect. And then, it's going to help us pay for future innovations on the platform. So maybe we add insurance in the future, maybe we add new features. All of that is going towards that payment right now. So it's completely basically free for homeowners. You just have to pay for payment processing. You get whatever you list your spot for, and then students pay the bulk of the price for us.
So I want you to be proud of that. I mean, that's how you generate income because you're providing value. You're providing a service, right? So yeah. I don't think anybody goes into business to not generate income, right? That should be a byproduct of providing good value. So tell me about then I think it's really cool because it lines up with everything that I've been learning over the years. And we'll talk about that. But you have a partner. Who's your partner?
So my partner is also going into his junior year at ASU. He's also a Flynn Scholar, and his name is Scott Fitzsimmons. He studies computer science.
Did you and Scott know each other before you got to ASU?
We didn't know. We met through the Flynn Scholarship, actually.
Okay. How did you guys meet and create this product?
Yeah, so Scott's also kind of had the entrepreneurial bug throughout his life. He is basically a wizard programmer, and, he taught himself how to program in high school. And, he did it by basically just saying, okay, I want to make an app for my iPhone, and I want it to do this. And then so he would do that. He would put it on the App Store, make a couple $1,000s. Just, that wasn't the goal. He was basically just making it because it was a fun project. And then he would do that, and he would put it on the App Store and make a little bit of money. So he also kind of had this entrepreneurial bug that we talked about before. And so he comes to ASU, and it gets even I guess you could say his entrepreneurial bug got worse, as in he was more sucked into that realm of his life. And, he got very involved in the entrepreneurial scene at ASU that they're trying to create because ASU is very big on this. They're supporting it. They've come up with all these different programs. Every single college has an entrepreneurship program now, and they're kind of working to centralize it, bring all these pitch competitions where you can earn funding together, bring all this giant mentor network. ASU is doing a really good job of supporting that, and Scott got involved right away at ASU. And so Scott was working on a couple different projects. He tried to do a couple different social media apps. And at the time, he was pitching in the eSeed Accelerator, which is at ASU. It's funded by Tom Prescott, the Invisalign CEO, or former Align Technologies CEO. They make Invisalign braces. And so he funded this competition at ASU because he's an alumni. Basically, it's just, come pitch your idea. We'll give you $1,000 and you can test your idea. And then from there, if you do well with testing it, we'll give you another $5,000 to further develop it. And so Scott had gone in and started pitching and gotten to the $1,000 round with the social media app. And, I kind of came to him and said, look, I have kind of this concept that we could pursue. What do you think about it? One day while we're walking down Mill Avenue, actually, with a group of other Flynn scholars. He says, I think that's a really good idea. I had kind of been thinking the parking needed to be solved here. And so we decided to put that into the eSeed Accelerator instead. And we got a lot of good advice, a lot of good feedback from the entrepreneurship program leaders there. And that was extremely helpful. We pitched the app, pitched the idea, and they give us $5,000. And that $5,000 has bridged us over this entire last 9 months. And that is what kind of brought us to, talking to students, talking to homeowners, fleshing out our idea, and then building the product that we thought would serve that need.
So tell me how you guys see your roles then, right? I mean, have you guys talked about it? Are you guys 50-50 partners? How does that all work?
Yeah, exactly. So we have a corporation, and we are both 50-50 shareholders in that corporation. Basically, the goal is to soon change that as we begin to take investment from outside sources. But basically what we do is Scott is mainly focused on technical development, and I'm mostly focused on business development. So I'm the CEO and he is the CTO. But we're both really, honestly, jack of all trades. He's not as experienced in business, and I'm not as experienced in programming, but I've been helping him with that, and he helps me with my role as well. So it's when you're starting a startup company, there's no real defined roles. Sure, on paper, I'm the CEO, but really what that means is I do everything. I do the sales, I do the marketing, I do the graphic design, and I do the Facebook ads, and I go talk to people, I do sales, and help Scott with programming and help customer service. And Scott does the exact same thing. So, it's really, there are official roles, but there's not at the same time, because the official role is you are basically the company at this point.
Is it just you two, or do you have anybody else helping you right now?
So it's mainly just us two. We had some kind of intern type people around ASU that were willing to lend a hand because they thought it was a cool idea. And so in the future, we'll be kind of expanding as well.
What would life feel like if you no longer had to worry about money? What would life look like with $10,000 in the bank and zero debt? Do you realize you're really only a few decisions away from living life on your terms and not the bank's? How do I know this? Well, because we were once living paycheck to paycheck, completely broke and facing a mountain of debt. However, fast forward to today, we're debt-free, we're building wealth, and we live life on our terms, not the bank's. So now it's your turn. I would love for you to join me on my free workshop where I share the same step-by-step system we use to take back our life and our money once and for all. So head on over to moneypeach.com/workshop and grab your free spot in this online training that you're going to absolutely love. Once again, that's moneypeach.com/workshop. I don't know if you've ever heard, but there's a lot of businesses out there, some of the most successful businesses that we've all heard of. You know, the biggest names in business. We're talking the Microsofts, the Disneys, the Apples. There was two people, right? And a lot of times we only think of one person, right? So I was telling you a minute ago, the Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak relationship, right? They meet in college. Ironic, just like you know, very smart guys meet at college, and they had this vision. And so Steve Jobs was kind of the front and center of it, right? And Steve Wozniak was in the background. They were 50-50. You needed both of them for Apple to be Apple, right? But we, you know, for the majority of people, we all know who Steve Jobs is. And then Steve Wozniak, we should know, but we don't know, right? And then I was telling you also another example of Disney, right? We all have heard of Disney. I don't think anybody in the world's not heard of Disney. Walt Disney. Well, Walt Disney actually had a brother, Roy Disney. And Walt, he had the vision of the drawings, the illustrations, the creative side, but he didn't have the business side, right? He was the creative one. So he got his brother Roy, who was a banker, to come along, and they teamed up together and they created Disney that we see today, you know, like the brand, the business, you know, how we see it. So I think I'm looking at this, I'm like, man, how cool would it be from this Money Peach podcast if I'm sitting here with Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak, just a different version of these guys in 2017. I mean, from what I've heard you guys, from what you've told us so far, I mean, 20-year-old kids out there are not high-level thinking like you are on a daily basis. I'm not bashing anybody else. I'm just saying I was a 20-year-old kid, right? And I was not high-level thinking like you are. And so, I mean, even before we did this podcast today, you said you were meeting with investors, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Potential investors.
This morning, yeah. Actually.
This morning. Yeah, you were dressed really nice when you showed up. I said, this is going to be a podcast. There's no video. You don't have to dress nice. It's like, I was meeting with investors. I mean, think about this for a second. For those listening, when you were 20 years old, were you meeting with investors to come on and help fund this amazing idea that could potentially change your life forever, right?
Yeah. I mean, it already has, I would say.
That's wild. I mean, so your mom and dad, right? What do they think of this?
Yeah, I mean, they definitely think it's pretty cool. I think their goal is to try to encourage me to, you know, finish my college degree first. You know, as I work on different projects throughout college, they've always said, hey, you should still finish your degree, and like, this is cool, but make sure your classes come first. And I think, you know, that's a result of the fact that I would be the first one in the family to kind of pursue more of a traditional 4-year degree where you go to college right after high school. Mm-hmm. My mom has her bachelor's, but it was at night school when she was working at Honeywell. And my dad kind of went to a 2-year technical school. And they've both been small business owners for a while now. So, you know, they have, I guess, placed aspirations that I would finish my college degree in a traditional sense and then, you know, maybe go and do research or do a PhD, that kind of thing. And that certainly was, you know, a viable option at some points. But you know, I've done research in college and I've done research on cool things that could potentially affect the way that we, you know, collect energy or do stuff like that. But, you know, it's just a different calling. Like being in the research lab is a totally different experience than being out, you know, helping people creating value today.
What do you like doing better?
I definitely prefer, you know, what I'm doing now with AirGarage and running a startup, running a company. I enjoy managing things. I enjoy like designing new processes for creating value and for setting things up so that they will succeed. I enjoy research in the theoretical sense, but experimental research can be tough. I mean, you spend hours in the lab and then you set up an experiment and it fails, and then you try again and it fails, and you try again and it fails, and you don't even get any data out of it because it's just not working. So it can get, you know, it's almost drudging to get through that. And I think, I mean, obviously, if you persist, it's very rewarding, and it can be. it's just not necessarily the most interesting thing to me at this point in my life, I guess.
How many hours are you putting in with AirGarage a week right now, would you say?
Right now, I mean, the last few weeks, I've been working from like 9 a.m. to 11 p.m., as bad as that is, helping customers, helping drivers find spots, acquiring new spots, coordinating with investors. I mean, it's a nonstop job. It's like, I'm falling asleep and I can't stop thinking about it, which is not a healthy lifestyle, right? I mean, in general, you want to like create a work-life balance, but when you're starting a startup company, sometimes it can be, you just don't want to stop, because as soon as you stop, you feel like, more things are going to come in and you're going to get further behind, and you want to continue to keep up with that and be able to keep the pace steady, because if you fail, if you stop creating value for people, then, you've lost everything that you've created so far almost.
Do you ever feel like it's work, or do you just love it? I mean, I was talking to somebody one time that says, Chris, I love what I do so much. They've been on the podcast as well. They said, sometimes I literally forget to eat. I'm just so excited about growing my business and doing this and going from A to B. Do you ever feel that way as well?
Yeah, definitely. My girlfriend makes fun of me a lot, because she'll be like, hey, can I come over and we'll hang out and we'll relax? And she'll come over and I'll just be like sitting there on my computer doing stuff. Obviously, she isn't happy with that all the time. She'll say like, hey, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I'm just doing this. Like, it's just, we're relaxing. Like, I'm enjoying like doing this. And she's like, well, that's not relaxing. I want to watch TV or like read a book or something. So I guess my definition of relaxing is doing something that I'm enjoying and having a good time doing. And AirGarage, doing work for that and creating value for the people that are using it is, relaxing to me. It's an enjoyable thing to do. So it's never really feels like work. And like that guy mentioned, it does get difficult to like find time to eat, because you're just like, I could put it off for another hour. Have you ever heard of like Soylent? So it's a meal replacement. It's like basically this liquid drink, but it's an FDA approved like food actually. So it gives you all the nutrients that you need. Sounds scammy and fake, but it actually works usually.
Maybe we need to get him on the podcast too.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, he's a little bigger than I am right now, but he definitely would be an interesting entrepreneur to talk to. It's like a movement. He's basically trying to create the future of food.
Wow. Okay. So going back to you though. So let me ask you this. How much TV do you watch a week?
I tend to avoid it. The only show the Netflix series that I've ever watched is right now my roommates and I are watching the Great British Baking Show, which is like totally not my type of show, but it's so enjoyable because it's just like the people are so nice. Like, you watch like the American cooking shows and they're so like angry and uptight, but then you watch the Great British Baking Show and it's so relaxing. And it's the only Netflix I've ever actually like watched as a series. And it's an enjoyable experience. It's a first.
All right. Okay, good. So the reason why I asked that, I was hoping you were going to say, I don't watch any TV, I'm working, but hey, you're able to manage it. So,
well, yeah. There's like 3 seasons worth of Great British Baking Show and we're 1 season in. So that's about as much. But yeah, my typical response, I would lie and say that I don't watch TV, but that's no longer true. Normally I don't watch TV, but you do have to socialize and interact with friends occasionally. And that happens to be what we do.
How are you managing working for AirGarage, running AirGarage, and going to school and keeping grades high enough where you can get your school paid for?
Yeah, well, thankfully, like going to college can be pretty easy. I mean, it's like the classes themselves aren't really the challenge, right? The challenge is balancing your time between doing classes, doing your extracurriculars, seeing people around campus and trying to, have club meetings and organizational meetings. I am currently the executive director for TEDx ASU, which is like TED Talks, but on ASU's campus. So that's exciting. I mean, like that earlier I mentioned, I did nonprofit consulting. That's through a nonprofit called the Arizona Microcredit Initiative. We help small businesses. So just, it's not that hard to go to college, but it's kind of hard once you start piling all of the extra things on top and you say, okay, well, I'm really interested in all of this stuff and I really want to do all of it right now while I have the opportunity, but it's not necessarily the best time to do it. So like last semester, it was like things just kept getting pushed off. But this summer, I would say, 100% of my time has basically been devoted to AirGarage and developing it and finding customers and getting them onto the platform. So, it really is a matter of priorities because AirGarage is the top priority and has been for the last 6 months now. Whereas, before that, maybe some other things in my life were also priorities.
Is it that thing you find yourself, you wake up, the first thing you're thinking about is AirGarage, and the last thing you think about when you go to bed is AirGarage?
Usually, yeah. I mean, I wake up in the morning and I try to go to the gym, but then sometimes I'm like, I don't want to go to the gym. I just want to start answering like phone calls and emails and like helping people. So, I mean, rather than like trying to go back to bed, I'm trying to like just immediately start working, and I have to force myself to go to the gym instead.
Yeah, I completely It's funny. I mean, you're reading my mind. That happens to me all the time. It's one thing. The gym is non-negotiable for me. I get 1 hour a day and I'm going no matter what. If I don't get it, I don't perform or produce as well as I could if I do go to the gym. It's weird. It's less time in my business, but I get more done when I go to the gym. But yeah, it's because, when you get an email from somebody that says, hey, I just paid off my last debt, thank you so much for your help. Or, hey, we just got set up with, life insurance that we never had. Thank you so much. We just set up our first budget. We've been married 22 years. We've never done that. Thank you so much. You hear these, you read these emails and you're like, wow, life's good, right? You read these things and you're changing people's lives and you're hearing the feedback, the value that, you envisioned in your mind, you and Scott, right?
Yeah.
And then, it comes to fruition and now you're here. When did you start AirGarage? How long ago?
The idea really started coming around last October. And then once we had those conversations.
So less than a year.
Less than a year. Yeah. So
my goodness.
So then we started having those conversations with people and beginning to talk to students, talk to homeowners. That was around December. And then, once we had those conversations, we found their feedback. We said, okay, let's build this. So we took like 4 or 5 months during the past spring semester and built out the website as it is today. And then in May is when we started onboarding homeowners. So I was just going door to door, knocking on people's doors and saying, hey, this is what we're doing. We're students at ASU. Parking is really expensive. And this is an opportunity for you to, increase your income. And so, of course, it took a lot of convincing to get the first people to come on because it's kind of a new service. And, people are naturally not trusting of people that knock on their doors these days. Mm-hmm. And then we launched for students in late June.
That is fast.
Yeah. And it's currently, I guess, like August 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're 2 months in. So how many users are there?
So there's about 300 registered users.
In 2 months?
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Now, is this just Arizona State right now?
Right. Yeah. So technically speaking, the platform is completely open. So anyone that lives anywhere in the United States could list a parking space or rent a parking space. But our marketing is mostly focused at Arizona State.
Okay. But it's going to obviously expand. I mean, you got to start the one thing, right? The one thing right now is Arizona State.
Yeah.
And then it's going to expand. I mean, look at the story of Facebook, right? Facebook didn't start everywhere. It started at one school.
Right.
And it grew and grew and grew. So I think that's unbelievable. I mean, I'm super excited to see what's going to happen. In 2 months, you've had 300 people register for this. What's your marketing like? What are you doing for marketing?
So as far as homeowners go, it's all been like, on the ground, like do flyers and then do a campaign of like going around knocking on people's doors, follow up with them, have those conversations because they're really important. And then, kind of do follow up marketing on like Facebook, that type of stuff. As far as students go, we actually haven't done any marketing yet. So we haven't started marketing to students. The only, I guess you could call it marketing is when we talk to news and the news gets shared on Facebook or something like that.
So you haven't paid a dime to market to students yet?
Correct. Well, we started recently doing Google AdWords for students because it's easy to target. ASU parking is no one else is competing for Google AdWords. So it's, we rank super high. Our cost per click is super low and it's easy to get those people to come in because they are looking for ASU's parking system, which is, by the way, a pretty bad website. It's like from the 90s, maybe early 2000s, if I'm being generous. But basically, we're competing with that, and it says, park near Tempe campus as low as $30 a month, which is our lowest parking spot. And people are like, whoa, that's way cheaper. Because what is also an advantage for them with AirGarage is you don't have to pay for the entire year if you don't want to. ASU forces you to buy a year-long pass when most students don't use the summer, and they also don't use December. Whereas with AirGarage, you only pay for August 18th to December 12th or whatever you want. You get to choose your dates, and it's much more flexible and thus allows them to have a lower cost in total.
Wow. Are you sure you're only 20?
I think so.
This is unbelievable. I mean, this is so cool. This is the stuff I love to talk about. I love hearing about, this high level thinking. I mean, this is blowing my mind here that you guys have created this from October to June. And then I can see the need for this. Is it patented? I mean, can anybody else compete and steal your idea?
Yeah. So we're definitely working on that. The goal is obviously not to let other people steal our idea, but the solution is to get patents, basically protect ourselves, and then protect the proprietary information as well as just move quickly. So we've had students reach out from, 15 different universities across the United States saying, hey, this is so cool. I think you should bring this to my university next because we have this parking problem and X and Y. And we're saying, that's great. We're going to be there soon. And so that's really the goal. That's why we're talking with investors now is because AirGarage could grow organically like we have been already and doing it with low costs, right? And we would be profitable in a short amount of time. We actually technically already are profitable, but that's not really the goal, right? The goal is to create value for as many people as possible. And if we have income or if we have investors coming in, then that will allow us to do that faster and on a bigger scale. And so that's really our goal is we're kind of working with investors, probably going to finalize some deals in the next week or so. and be able to expand to the University of Arizona, expand to ASU's downtown campus, GCU, ASU West. NAU has requested it. There's people in North Carolina, Rhode Island. There was one at BYU in Long Beach. There's people pretty much all over the country that are saying, hey, I'm a college student and I saw that you're doing this at ASU and we have the same problem, except some of them are actually even worse. And so we want to go there and help those students and solve their problems as well.
Wow. So right now it sounds like you're running into a cash flow problem because you want to grow, you just can't grow, and that's why you need the investors.
Yeah, exactly. So hopefully that cash flow problem will be solved in about a week. But yeah, so if anyone's listening and is interested, we are looking for investors right now to raise a seed round. We're really looking for people that are willing to partner and provide us with advice as young entrepreneurs and provide us that capital that will get us going to the next level, be there to advise us as we need, and be willing to watch and experiment with us and learn as we go, which is really what entrepreneurship is about. And it's, about learning as much as you can from your customers, and then how quickly can you take what you've learned and re-implement it and make what you're doing better. I have this one homeowner that I appreciate beyond anything because he is willing to sit down with me and have 1 hour long phone conversations twice a week and tell me I've got this spot and it's really, this is my pain point. How can we address this? And that's so valuable as an entrepreneur to have those customers that are willing to be your basically your super users that are using your platform like nobody else, and they're pushing the brink of what you can do. But the entire time they're doing it with the intent of in their mind, they can imagine what it would be if it was a perfect product, and they can tell you, you should add this or you should go this direction and we should fix this problem. And that's so valuable. Do you have any mentors or anybody that you sit with and learn from or anything like that? So we have a few people at ASU that kind of give us advice on where to find resources, but really honestly, I would say our most important mentors are those homeowners that are willing to sit down and give us that advice, because maybe they're not, business acumen savvy, or maybe they don't have the knowledge to scale a company, but they have the knowledge that is most important to us, which is how we can provide value for them. And if we can provide value for these, 50 homeowners that we have, then we can provide value at scale for 50,000 homeowners. So when you go back to school here in about a month away? Yeah, if we go back to school, yes, it would be about a month from now. If you go back to school, and hey, you're talking to me here. I'm going to be recommend, hey man, you can always go back to school next semester. You have this window here. I think that you should definitely push pause so you could put 100% effort. That's just me. I know many people are listening going, oh my gosh, Chris, you're so against education. I'm not against education. I'm just against giving up opportunity. Yeah, definitely. And that's pretty much what we're looking at right now. And the thing we are most grateful for is the fact that our Flynn Scholarship and all of our scholarships actually provide for that. They allow you, whether it be for mental health reasons or for entrepreneurship reasons, anything in that spectrum, they say, we understand that college can't necessarily happen consecutively every time. So you have the opportunity to put this on pause and pursue whatever it is that you want. So we're, that's probably the option that we're going to take pretty here soon is, how can we go full time with this and spend 100% of our energy? And if I'm taking all of the energy that I would normally put into classes and organizations and putting it into AirGarage, where can we go? Yeah, I agree. Definitely agree. And the Flynn people are smart. They're we're giving scholarships to the brightest minds in Arizona. I'm sure they're going to be creative the next 4 years to come up with something really cool. We probably should let them do that, right? Yeah, that's definitely their goal. That's unbelievable. I love it. I love this. I mean, I got goosebumps talking about this because I'm starting to see this vision that you have. I'm starting to join this vision, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is huge. I mean, this is a win-win-win. I feel like sitting down, in 2005 and talking to somebody about this idea about, let's take our cars and let's create our own taxi cabs and we'll call it Uber. I'm thinking of this. I mean, that's obviously a whole different level right now, but it started somewhere. Right. It started with a conversation on Mill Avenue, that's the main college town road near Arizona State on the west side of campus called Mill Avenue. And so, yeah, you and Scott have this walk on Mill Avenue where you guys come up with this idea of AirGarage. Not even a year later, you're sitting down with investors and you're talking about really expanding this. Not even a year later, you're having colleges from all over the United States contacting you saying, bring it here, right? You're not even marketing to them. They're asking you for it. This is wildly, wildly incredible. I mean, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. I got butterflies in my stomach because I am stoked. I am excited to see where this goes. And just for the record, how many podcasts have you been on before? That would be a total of 0. Okay, so this is the first one. This is the first one. Okay, so I'm going to save this because when you guys get really big, this is going to be my claim to fame. Yeah, I know AirGarage. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I know AirGarage. You've got a connection. I got a connection. Yeah. I love asking this question here.
Give me your daily routine. What does it look like starting when you wake up?
So
what time do you wake up?
I wake up at 7 a.m.
Okay. College student, that's really early for college students.
As far as college students, and especially in the summertime, I would say it's decently early.
Yep.
I find that if you don't get enough sleep, you just don't function at the same level. Even if you think you can function on 4 hours of sleep every single night, most people can't.
So how many hours of sleep do you get?
Exactly 7.5 every night.
Okay.
Because it's, a certain amount of sleep cycles that you sleep through. And
I heard it was 4 sleep cycles at 90 minutes. Is that what you've read too?
Yeah, I think that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
Okay.
And so I sleep from 11:30 p.m. to 7 a.m., wake up, go to the gym for an hour, and then I come back and listen to usually a podcast or an audiobook or read The Economist Espresso, which is, just daily news on high-level economics topics, which is really interesting. Cook breakfast, read a book usually while I eat breakfast, then take a shower, listen to NPR, get caught up. And pretty much right at 9 a.m. around that time now is where I start delving into who has issues with the platform today, like what can we do to fix those, like how are we going to rearrange, maybe a homeowner has a spot that got booked twice or like something like that, and just helping people with that. And then, usually try to stop for a lunch break around 1 p.m. and just keep trucking through. Over the summer, the routine has been do that, and then around 5 p.m., wrap that up, go out, hit the streets because it's a little cooler in the daytime at 5 p.m., and go knock on homeowners' doors and, start having those conversations to get more people onto the platform, that kind of thing. I'll do that usually from 5 to 7 and then come back and keep working to find students and help the students with their problems, get people their parking passes, all that information. It's really it's a continual process of, being able to help everyone and get everyone set up to succeed on the platform.
So for those of you listening who don't live in Phoenix, it's 117, 120 degrees in the afternoons in Phoenix.
It's not
and you're cold. Going, I mean, it's unbelievable. You're going door to door and you're knocking on doors. And I think that's so powerful. I mean, unbelievable. You're grinding. You're putting in so much effort. We had a guy in the podcast, I can't think of, it might have been episode 38, talks about how he was told at age 20 that if you do these things in life, you're going to be able to retire in about 30 years. And if you're really good, you can cut that in half. And you remember he was thinking, he's like, I'm going to be really good. And he did. He retired at age 34. He started at age 20, retired at age 34, and he took those principles, but he started off doing grinding work like you're doing, like sitting out in the Arizona sun and, trying to find customers, in the blazing heat, going door to door like you're doing. I mean, I think it's powerful. People out there, I think everybody wants to win. I don't think anybody wakes up and says, man, I want to be a loser today, right? I just want to struggle for the rest of my life, live paycheck to paycheck, and just be a victim of my own reality, right? No one says that, right? I hope not.
I was going to say, I hope not.
So the difference is between, so what's the difference then, Jonathan, of the people out there who they want to win? We all want to win, right? But then there's the people who are winning, and it's like, what's the difference, right? And the difference is it's not very big. It's taking action. It is, getting up at 7 a.m. as a college student, which in like human terms is like 3 a.m. for like adults, I think, right? When you're getting up at 7 a.m. as a college student, it's close to 3 a.m. in adult world is what I would equate it to. So you're getting up at 3 in the morning. Well, you're getting up at 7 a.m., but you know what I mean? And, then you're reading books. I mean, people don't read books in the morning, right? I mean, they say the average American reads one book a year. One book a year. That's it. And so you're reading, and then what else you're reading? You read The Economist?
Yeah, The Espresso. Yeah.
And then you're listening to an audiobook or you listen to a podcast, self-development. And then you go in from 9 a.m., work till 5 p.m. Well, physical fitness, still a big part of your life, right? You have to have it. It's how you function. The highest level thinkers in the world all say that physical fitness is a huge part of their life, whether it's a half hour, 30 minutes or a half hour, whatever it might be. So it's unbelievable. So for those of you on your jog, in your car, on the train, going to work, whatever you're doing right now, think about that. Think about that for a second is take action, right? Take action. And it doesn't have to be glorious action. I could tell you going door to door when it's 117 degrees in Phoenix, knocking on the door, that's not glorious, right? I mean, but it's necessary, right? Because your story is going to be unbelievable. People are going to be telling the story, Jonathan. They're like, did you know Jonathan, when he was going to Arizona State, that's where it started, by the way. It was founded at Arizona State. He was literally going door to door and asking people if they'd be interested. How crazy is that, right? You hear all these other highly successful people out there and they all have a story of their beginning. When you hear it, you're like, oh my gosh, you just wrap your hand around that and go, that is cool. And that's your story. I mean, it's amazing. It's an amazing story. All right, man, I think we're getting close to wrapping up here. So I have a couple things I want to ask you before we go. What books do you recommend? right? Because people are going to take action. People listening are like, nope, today I'm taking action. What books do you recommend?
The book I'm reading right now is called Hackers and Painters. It's by Paul Graham. And basically, if you're anyone that's interested in technology, or if you're anyone that lives in the modern world past the year 2000 and you want to understand more about, how things on the internet or how products that involve coding and apps, all of that came to be and got developed, then this book really goes into the nitty gritty of what it really took for people that developed those things to develop them. And I mean, I wouldn't say it's my number one favorite book, but right now it's interesting to be reading this when, I'm going through this process of developing something that he's talking about. He talked about how he was working at a company called ViaWeb, however you pronounce it. And basically they were creating something for companies to create their first websites. And he's talking about just the concept of creating value through product iteration and creating things with technology. And being able to read that as I am doing the same thing is extremely valuable, because it gives you a new way to look at, developing something with technology is so different than, say, the person that made the sofa that you're sitting on, that kind of thing. Like, that's a totally different product and market and like new era of value creation that we've entered. And it makes it, that much more incredible.
So what's the name of the book?
It's called Hackers and Painters.
Okay. What audiobooks do you listen to? What podcasts?
Yeah, I listen to podcasts. I think they're a great way to digest information while you're doing other things. So, maybe you're sitting in the shower and you're like, I should be doing something more productive right now. Or you're driving to work and you're like, all I'm doing is listening to music and ads. So like, why don't I do something more useful with my time? So podcasts are great for that. I listen to like startup podcasts. So, How I Built This, Startup by Gimlet. And, what is it?
It's called How I Built This?
How I Built This, yeah.
Okay.
It's all about entrepreneurs and the tech companies that they created, the value that they created. And then Startup by Gimlet is about how they started Gimlet Media. And then it goes into other entrepreneurs and their stories. And then there's The Pitch, which is basically a podcast where they invite entrepreneurs to basically tell them about their businesses. And it becomes almost like Shark Tank, kind of where they pitch their business in order to try to win money from investors.
Okay. So we'll have links in all the show notes to everything he just mentioned. Anything that we've talked about, we'll definitely throw inside the show notes. So if you're driving, don't worry. Don't pull over. We'll give you the link in a minute. So, all right. So then another question I ask all the guests that come on the show is, what is on the home screen of your phone?
I try to keep it as empty as possible because, your phone can really become a huge distraction for you. So basically, the home screen of my phone is just the most important, like the weather, my voicemail, my text messages.
No, but like, what's the picture?
Oh, the picture. I thought you were talking about like utility wise. I believe it's a picture of basically if you were in the Apollo mission that first went to the moon, it's looking back at the Earth from the moon.
I'm going to have you send me a picture of that. We're going to put that in the show notes too.
I can do that.
Because I got to think like, now this is an extreme high level thinker. I want to know what he's looking at, right? So we'll have actually the picture inside the show notes as well. All right, Jonathan. Hey, this was awesome. This was amazing. 20-year-old creating something of value like this that is in less than a year getting this much traction. This is unbelievable, man. This is such a cool story. I have such a feeling inside that this AirGarage concept is going to be very common in all of our minds. Like, it's just, we're all going to know about it very soon. Everybody, not just the listeners here. And so it's super cool that I found you and we got you on the Money Peach podcast before anybody else, because I have a feeling, man, you are going to be inundated with podcast requests and interview requests. Where can we find you?
Yeah, so our website is www.airgara.ge. So it's airgara.ge. Spells AirGarage, but with a dot before the G and the E.
Okay. We'll have links to that. Are you guys on social media or anything like that yet?
Yeah, so all of our handles are AirGarage1.
AirGarage1. Twitter,
1.
Instagram, Facebook, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I believe so.
All right. We'll have links to all that as well. Thank you again so much for coming on the show. This was really cool.
Yeah, thanks.
And just like that, we wrap up another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. All the show notes, the links, anything Jonathan and I talked about can be found over at moneypeach.com/session55. That's moneypeach.com/session55. Special thanks to my producers, Steve Stewart, my assistant, Kayla Sloan. Without them, this show would not be possible. We'll see you guys next week, same time, same place, with another amazing episode of the Money Peach podcast. Boom,